Hey, what's up guys, Ben at ProFixerr. Here in my hand I have a Nubia Red Magic 3 gaming smartphone, which this thing is literally a gaming PC packed into the size of a phone. And I don't just mean that because it has a great processor, which it does. This thing competes with Galaxy S10s and similar phones, but it has RGB LED lighting on the back. And if that's not crazy enough, it has touch-sensitive shoulder triggers just like a PC gaming controller could have. And if that's not crazy enough, this thing has an internal cooling fan that sucks in air in the back and blows it out the side, just like a true gaming PC. So let's just check this thing out. The first thing you'll notice when unboxing the device is the packaging. It's done really well, and the phone is placed in the box as if it's almost being presented to you, with it sitting off to one side and the Red Magic logo sitting on the other. It really seemed like Nubia did a really good job in just presenting the whole box and everything with it to kind of give you a little more, I don't know, I thought it was a pretty cool experience. The Red Magic 3 is essentially a ZTE, because ZTE used to own the whole company of Nubia. I don't know when, but in the past sometime they had actually sold off partial amount, and ZTE only has a minority stake in the company. But that does bring a lot of ZTE influence to its build and things like that. But I was actually really surprised doing a teardown of this thing, and the specs are that of a flagship device, so it's really nothing to be afraid of or think that it's like a standard ZTE, because it truly isn't. This device is really amazing. When you look inside the box, you'll find all the regular manuals, the ones that of course no one reads, along with a USB-C charge cable in the color red, which is nice because of Red Magic. As well, the power block, which has variable output and supports up to 27 watt fast charging for the huge 5,000 milliamp battery, which is pretty fitting being that it's a gaming device. The screen is a 6.65 AMOLED display, which is FHD+, meaning that it has a resolution of 2560 by 1440 pixels. Pretty impressive. And those aren't just the most impressive things about it. The refresh rate is 90 Hertz, which is the highest of any handheld phone type device currently available. The only other device with a higher refresh rate is going to be the iPad Pro, at least that I know of. It has a 120 Hertz refresh rate, but then again it's a tablet, so it doesn't really compete with the Nubia Red Magic 3, being that it's a phone and the iPad Pro is a tablet. As far as phones go, the OnePlus 7 Pro does have 90 Hertz refresh rate, just like the Red Magic 3, but then again, it is a more expensive device. The overall build of the Red Magic 3 fits right into the current gaming PC styling, with its edgy accents. Even the camera protective lens is cut into a diamond shape. On each corner edge, you'll find the touch-sensitive shoulder triggers, which assist in gaming, giving a more ergonomic feel as if it's a real controller. On the side opposite of the triggers, you'll see these contacts that give you the ability to attach specially made gaming accessories. I don't have any with me, but looking on the Red Magic store online, it looks like there's a ton of gaming accessories that are made specifically for the Red Magic 3, which is pretty cool. And the price points are great too. They look actually really cheap and affordable to go along with such an awesome device. On the back of the device, there's a single 48 megapixel rear camera, which can record in 8K. The 8K part of it's still in beta, so it doesn't really record that well, and it's kind of choppy because it only records at 15 frames per second. And if you're indoors, it's going to have a lot of noise, but overall, it's a pretty cool feature to have, and apparently they should be getting this out of beta sometime soon. They didn't really give a date on it, but we may be seeing that be a full-fledged feature on the phone. 4K works just fine though. 4K actually records pretty decently well, but one thing about the camera is apparently they say it does not have image stabilization, so that is kind of a downer on the specs of the camera. As far as the selfie camera, it's 16 megapixels, which is pretty impressive. Gaining access to the device is actually relatively easy. Being that it has an internal cooling fan with external ports, there's really no way to make it water resistant, so there's no real perimeter adhesive around the screen like some of the other screens, because it would still be able to get inside the device through the fan anyway. You remove the two bottom screws and then gently work your way around the edges until the back of the device is loose. This is actually more difficult than I initially anticipated, because the tolerances from the screen to the bezel are extremely tight, and the only thing that I could get to fit between them without gouging up the bezel was a razor blade. Once the back is loose, be careful as there's still two ribbons still attached. One is held by a bracket and a screw, but they both unplug pretty easy. Taking a look inside the back, you'll see the internal cooling fan. The RGB LED lighting, fingerprint sensor, and as well the touch-sensitive triggers are held in by the back housing. The housing is made of solid metal, which is extremely sturdy even off of the device. There's like no flex to it. It's pretty cool. Two screws and a bracket hold the LCD, touch, and battery connectors down. And here we can see the huge 5,000 milliamp battery. With a battery this big, it should have extremely good battery life, which is really important being that it's a dedicated gaming device. 3 screws at the top hold down the top speaker, which has a rather large housing, which makes total sense because this thing has really great audio. The 16 megapixel front camera is held down as well by the speaker and the housing. To remove the motherboard, you'll remove a few screws, 2 flexes, and 1 coax. Work your way carefully around the edges and pull the motherboard out. It's still held in by a lot of thermal paste, so it'll take a little bit of time to do that. And you'll notice that the thermal paste is extremely gummy. There are a few other devices that do use thermal paste, cooling pipes, or even thermal pads, but none with a cooling system as extravagant as the Red Magic 3. It's pretty impressive that they actually packed all of this into a device that's still relatively slim. On the bottom of the phone, you'll remove a few screws, and then you'll find a smaller board that holds a charge port, vibrate, as well powers the bottom speaker, which is pretty sizable as well. And now let's take a look at the cooling fan and housing. This is probably the coolest part of the whole device. And at first looking at it, it looks kind of like plastic and almost feels like it too. But I was able to use my metal tweezers to scratch just a little bit of the coating off to reveal the metal underneath, which makes total sense that it's metal versus plastic like I'd initially thought, because plastic can't dissipate heat very well at all, which wouldn't make any sense to have a fan that can't dissipate any heat. The cooling fan and housing are held in very tightly with some incredibly strong adhesive, but with a little persuasion I was able to take a look inside to reveal the fan itself, and it's incredibly impressive how they're able to fit a physical fan in a device this slim. The RGB LEDs are behind this black tape and held on by a connector underneath. The light channel can be peeled back to reveal the LEDs underneath. Reassembly is a lot easier than disassembly as long as you put all the screws back in the right spot, so keep track of them. They look like they're all about the same length, but just in case, you don't want to put a long screw in a short spot and cause damage to any components underneath. One last thing I wanted to check before we put it together was the camera, to see if it actually had image stabilization or not, because initially it said it didn't, and it's kind of disappointing that it doesn't, because if it did, it would actually move a little bit more than it does in the housing right now. Go ahead and drop this bracket on and connect the battery so we can put the rear housing back on. And anytime there are longer flexes that are attached to a back housing like this, it can get a little awkward, but with a little bit of patience, we're able to put it back together pretty easily. Just don't rush it. Connect the second flex cable and then insert the phone into the housing starting at the top. Gently apply pressure around the edges until it's completely flush. And as long as it is, go to put the 2 bottom screws in, your reassembly is finished. Gaming on the Red Magic 3 is pretty epic. It has a dedicated button to enter gaming mode, which gives you access to all the options that make for a better gaming experience, like those touch-activated shoulder triggers, as well the adjustments for the cooling fan, and even the LEDs on the back. This is the first time I've ever played PUBG, and I really have no idea what I'm doing, but the device runs without issues and auto-detected to play on the highest setting since the Red Magic 3 has such a great processor. I really like the Red Magic 3 and I'm completely blown away with its specs and its features and overall build quality. It's a complete solid device from the processor to the physical build quality, and just the cool factor really lives up to the hype of really what a gaming phone should be. I really appreciate y'all watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If not, the dislike button seems to work okay too. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. In the meantime, come to my own channel, ProFixerr. It's in the description below, along with all the parts and tools that I got from InjuredGadgets for this video. Appreciate y'all watching. See you later.